What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the show. I'm excited about today's episode, but before I get into it, make sure you subscribe, like, comment, give us a rating and review. It just helps us grow the podcast. So this guy, Keala Kanae, I found him a while ago. We were just talking about that. Is a growth facilitator, a coach, a blogger, a marketer. He's the CEO founder of Full Stack Marketer. He has scaled his business from 0 to 7 figures in 4 months, did 20 million in his first year, and is right now doing about $2 million a month in business through his his multiple enterprises. So Keala, man, great to have you. Thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me, brother. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Let's talk about affiliate marketing. That's kind of your go-to. Just for the audience, for me even, like, can you describe that? I think I get the gist of it, but how do you make money, or how does your business make money as an affiliate marketer? What does that mean?
Yeah, so affiliate marketing is basically where I got my start. That was my quote unquote rise to stardom, I guess, originally. And the long and short of it is that affiliate marketing is basically just the process of, earning commissions by sending some other existing business more customers who purchase their products and services. So when I was an early stage entrepreneur, so for many years, I was kind of a wantrepreneur, if that makes sense, meaning, I had the dream of having my own business, being in control of my own destiny, struggled like so many people do. And when I discovered affiliate marketing, it took a lot of the weight off my shoulders, in the sense that instead of having to come up with some sort of product or service to offer the marketplace, I could just partner with a company that already had a proven product or service that people were buying. It was getting traction. It was obviously valuable. And then I could let the business deal with all the complexities of business, hiring, firing, inventory, customer hassles, all that drama. And I could just focus on marketing, advertising, and sales, and get paid every time I referred them a customer. And for me, the kind of the epiphany, the aha moment, if you will, that I had kind of discovering this, was I realized that if I could just focus on the advertising component, the marketing component, and some other business had to deal with all the rest, then eventually I would master the skill set that I felt at the time was the most valuable skill set that I could have in business, because so many businesses struggle because they have a hard time acquiring customers. So if I could figure out how to acquire customers and just specialize in that, eventually I could have any business that I wanted. And so, that's basically where I made my first few $1 million in sales. My first $1 million in commissions was just selling other people's products and earning commissions doing so. Typically in affiliate marketing, not to say that this is the only way that it's done, but for me, I like partnering with businesses where there's a high ticket offer, because the commissions are obviously more substantial. And when you factor in the cost of advertising, the costs of advertising are increasing. They're always going to be increasing. In order to kind of liquidate the cost of advertising it get back to profit, the higher the price point, the faster that you liquidate those costs and get into profit. So
when you say high ticket, well, first, can you define that? Is that over 2,000, over 5,000? What's kind of high ticket when you say that?
Great question, because I hear people throw that term around a lot, and we don't always have the same meaning for it. Sure. At minimum, I'm looking for something where I can earn $1,000 commission or more.
And your commission is typically what percentage of the sale? Is it 10, 20, 30% of the sale to be an affiliate?
Depends on the offer. Typically, if I'm selling like a product or a service, like a physical product or service, because there's a substantial fulfillment cost that can come along with that, then you're looking typically around maybe the 20 to 30% arena. If I'm selling like an info product or coaching or something like that, then you can be higher into like the 50 percentile. At times. And I've seen affiliate programs. I mean, I've sold offers where they were paying us 70% commissions as well. So it really just depends.
Now, do you discriminate at all on product or service? Like, do you stay in a lane, or if you're an affiliate marketer, is the lane essentially more of almost like a buy box? Like, doesn't matter what it is. It's just more, does it fit the criteria of $1,000 commission and so on and so forth? Like, is it a blender and then like a online course and then, like a camera? Like, what does it look like? What do you actually market?
Yeah. So the most scalable markets are like in the affiliate world, we call it, or really in the digital marketing world, we call it like the big three. So it's money and finance, health and wellness, love and relationships, because everybody basically wants to get laid, get paid, and live forever. And so in those are like the markets that I would normally stay inside of. I eventually, through the process of this, I kind of realized that I liked the financial markets most, because those are things that I like reading about, I like studying, I like watching YouTube videos about. So, I mean, I made substantial money selling stuff in the health and wellness space, but it wasn't necessarily as inspiring for me as talking to people about like the opportunities of making money. And so over my first few years, I realized that was like my sweet spot. That's the stuff that, like, if I was writing an email to my list, I didn't have to like sit around and try to like look up blog articles and come up with ideas. I could just spit stuff off the top of my head.
Yeah.
And so I eventually started to narrow in on just that lane. But originally, yeah, I mean, I've definitely sold dating products. I've definitely sold health and wellness products, but the financial world is really what excites me the most.
I want to get to the scaling here, but there's a couple things in here I want to make sure of for me, my own brain. So when you say money and finance products, are these what's the difference, if there is any, between a physical product versus what I'm picturing right now, which is more of like a course, a coaching, a mastermind, maybe something like that. Like, are there physical products in money and finance that you would sell, or is it mostly on the coaching and consulting side?
Yeah, in that arena is mostly the information space. So the only physical product I ever sold was really in the health and wellness space,
Sure.
which was a water ionizer, a fairly highly priced water ionizer. And I mean, we blew that thing up so much so that the company was like trying to change its compensation plans, its commission
Wow.
structure, because they were having a hard time keeping up with how much, like, facilitating the inventory for how quickly that we were selling the product. But other than that, it's basically been in the information space. So
How do you, so you have a list. I was going to ask you about paid versus organic and just using a list versus paid ads and all of that stuff. I'm wondering about the flow. Like, so and just thinking about it from a user standpoint, 3 years ago or whatever, or 4 years ago, when you're in the throes of this, do I pull up my phone on Facebook and do I see an ad with you talking about this information product for this person? And then I see another ad with you as the influencer talking about this information product. And then I get an email because I'm on your list about another information product. And then a week later, a different information. Like, what does that look like for the end user?
that is a great question. So no, I wasn't always in all of the ads. It really depended on what offer I was promoting. Sometimes I would just be able to take other people's ads and run it. That's a little bit more difficult to do today in platforms like Facebook, because they use facial recognition, so they don't want multiple advertisers using the same ad.
Hmm.
But in the back when I started out, that wasn't necessarily the case. But once I put you on a list, so if I'm running an ad in, let's say, the health and wellness space, and you join my list, and you opt into a list based on that, then I know that your interest is in the health and wellness space. Now, typically, I'm going to have some sort of a primary offer, so something that I'm looking to sell that is like the number one thing that I'm focused on. But if you don't buy that thing inside of 60 to 90 days, then I'm going to segment you off into a promotional list where there's a couple of things that I might do. So back then, what I used to do is I would take people through kind of a 60 to 90 day sequence inside of that market that they came through. And then at the end of that, I would try to run some sort of a quiz. So in that quiz, I would ask, like, what else might you be interested in? And depending on what boxes they check would dictate what other lists they went on to and what other promotions that they might see. And so that way I kind of get a buy-in from them about what are there some of their other interests. Like, a good example of this is, and a lot of people don't know this, digital marketer. I'm sure you've heard of digital marketer Ryan Dice, all
Sure.
these guys, Roland Frazier, my anyway, so they had a survival brand for a while. And when they were trying to figure out what that brand, what other opportunities existed inside of that brand, they pulled their list. And the other thing that they found that was interesting was a lot of the list was interested in DIY makeup. So doing their own makeovers. So they ended up having a spin-off business that was in that arena, which would normally to us seem completely unrelated, but because of their testing, that's what they found. So similar to that, right? So I'm bringing in people. I know exactly what they're interested in based on what they opted in for. And then on somewhere on the back end, if they haven't bought my primary offer, I'm going to segment them off using some sort of a quiz. Of course, if they don't answer the quiz, then I'm just going to kind of keep them inside of a campaign that's related to the thing that they originally opted in for. But if they'll take the quiz and go through it, then I can figure out what else they might be interested in. And I'm going to promote other, what I call like back end offers or supplementary offers. At the end of the day, when we're generating leads online, there's a cost to generating that lead. And so, my job as the affiliate is to make sure that I monetize that lead effectively.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. All right. Today, are you still in this space? Are you still affiliate marketing? Have you pivoted? What are you doing right now?
Yeah, so we still do a pretty substantial amount of earnings every year through affiliate marketing. I have a couple $100,000 a month of recurring income there. We do about maybe $5 to $7 million a year through affiliate marketing, which is basically, but today it looks a little bit different. So I have a substantially larger audience, a substantially larger list. And normally, these days I go and broker the deal with whoever it is that I want to, kind of do it. We consider it more of a JV. So somebody else has a product or service or something that they can offer to my audience that's going to be valuable that my audience is looking for. And then I'll go to them and kind of broker the deal. Typically, we're going to take the lion's share of the commissions because I know that when I run a promotion to my list, I'm going to usually do $1 million plus in about a week of promotion. Sure. So, it gives me a little bit stronger positioning and posturing to broker the deal. So we're typically do about 60 to 70% of the revenue that comes out of there. And we're just more selective about who we work with.
Makes sense.
But it does bring us a substantial income every year.
Excellent. And you spend, if I heard right, you spend over $1 million a month in ads. And are you doing that at a loss initially for initial customer acquisition?
Oh, this is a great question. Don't even get me started. And Jamie, we could talk about this for a long time, but currently we're not spending about $1 million a month. At one point we were spending about $30,000 to $40,000 a day on YouTube ads. We're not spending necessarily that much at this moment. But yes, the long and the short of it is, so when it comes to scaling an ad campaign or an offer, one of my strategies is something I call negative acquisition. And when you look at a lot of the kind of big boys and girls in the space, the ones that are really scaling, really pushing, the boundaries, they're all doing the same thing. It's all negative acquisition. So what do I mean by negative acquisition? Well, what it means is that I'm losing money on customer acquisition. So a lot of times people tend to think that like, hey, if I'm going to advertise, I'm going to spend $100 today on ads, I want to make $200 back. Sure. Great, that works. It can work. I lived and played in that space for quite some time. But if you really want to get into scale, like really, really scaling, then you got to be willing to basically lose money acquiring a customer, lose money on the front, and make all the money on the back end. So I started doing this originally as an affiliate. Like once I started to work with businesses that had more high ticket offers. And at some point in my evolution, I was willing to get on the phone and sell those high ticket offers myself. So I would generate customers for that business. And then I would do a call, a one-to-one call with the customer that I had generated. And I would sell the high ticket offer on behalf of the business and earn the commission. Once I started playing with those numbers, and I was able to earn those higher ticket commissions, I realized right away that I'm being way too conservative on my advertising. And if I really want to scale, then, I've got to go upside down on the front. So the best business for me to talk about would be like our primary business today. So we scaled, we launched in November of 2016 originally with our existing like courses and coaching program. Yeah. And by March of 2017, we were doing 7 figures a month. And we had our front end product was $99. Back end product at the time was $10K. Now, because I had run so many different types of offers through a funnel like that, where there was a low ticket front end, but a top tier back end, I was able to kind of figure out roughly where my numbers would land. And what I did is, the first couple of months that we were running traffic in, I was watching all the back end sales revenue, trying to get a feel for, okay, so within that first 30 to 60 days, what is my average front end customer going to be worth? Once I kind of had that dialed, so we came up with about $1,000. So within about 60 days of acquiring a customer, they would spend on average, somebody who spent $100 with us on average would spend $1,000 with us, 10x on the back end.
Yep.
Now, then I wanted to scale things up fairly quickly. And at the time, I didn't have a big team. I didn't have a lot of the operations that we have today, these sorts of things. So I was willing to go basically upside down 50%. So I would spend $500 to acquire a $100 buyer and know that on the back end, I would make about twice that. So 2x ROAS, I'd make twice that within about 30 to 60 days. Once our sales team was able to get on the phone with that client. So at the end of the day, the business that's going to win the marketplace is the business that's willing to spend the most to acquire a customer, period.
Amazon.
Yeah.
Right. At the end of the day, wasn't that Amazon's model at one point? They were losing. It was purely, losing on the front end, on the customer acquisition side, I should say. Right. And then they would make it up with just what they've done now. I mean, obviously biggest company.
Only for about 12 years. They only lost money for about 12 years straight.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
So yeah, they were upside down. They're probably the best example of a company that was willing to go way into the negative on customer acquisition. But their goal was, and Jeff Bezos used to talk about this, right? Is that like their goal was to have a credit card on file from every household across North America, which, today they do. I've yet to meet somebody who's like, yeah, I don't have an Amazon account. So the longer the runway, the bigger the aircraft. And they had a 12-year runway,
Yeah, no, that's a great point. It's kind of the Gary V jab hook kind of thing, right? Like jab right hook, the same idea. Keep the longer you can go before truly monetizing, the more the back end monetization will be, right? So somebody trying to quit their job. Well, I've done this 6 months and I want to now monetize. It's like, if you have to, I guess, go for it, but you're going to make this versus if you wait 3 years before you truly monetize. Add value. So when you say 50%, so if you, simple numbers, if you have a $100 product, you're willing to spend 150 essentially, correct, to acquire that customer, or $200 to acquire that customer?
No. At that time, 5x. So when I say it's 50% of the overall customer value, at that time was what I was willing to spend on customer acquisition.
1,000. Got it. So $500 you're willing to spend. And then,
Correct.
and then you would have a flow, I'm assuming. So, all right. So you're spending, that's just on ads. That's just on upfront marketing, but not on sales commission. So then you'd have a sales commission that comes out of that. And the margin is your profit essentially after the ad spend, sales commission. So they eat what they kill. So you're not spending anything unless they close somebody.
Correct.
And then you got the back end. Interesting.
Yeah. So that'd be like the gross margin, basically the gross profit in the business. Now, it turns out that like when you actually scale a company and you have a bunch of like people that work for you and, you have fulfillment and all these things, turns out that 50% might not necessarily be the healthiest number. So today we stay more inside of like 35% of our our budget on a monthly basis is 35% marketing, 25% labor, and 15% G&A.
Okay, so about 25% profit margin overall is what you're targeting, which makes sense. The scaling that fast, because my mind is going into I got to imagine, or I have to imagine, that what you're doing now at scale is you've got a system dialed in where your customer acquisition, your customer lifetime value, or at least value within 60 days or 90 days, right after acquiring them. You know what you need to spend, you know what your profit margin is, but in the middle of that, in order to realize that $1,000, 60-day customer value or whatever, there's got to be really good fulfillment and service in the middle of that. So it makes me wonder, going from $0 to $1 million a month in 4 months, did you have that locked in? That's fast, man. Did you have it locked in where you've got fulfillment set, staff set, like everything was infrastructure built, we're ready to go at $1 million a month? I don't think you did, but I'll tee up the question that way and see what you take from it.
Way to keep me honest on here, Jamie. So no, absolutely not was I prepared for that in no way, shape, or form. So one of my quote unquote mistakes, we might call it, is early on in my career, I came from the world of affiliate marketing, and I came from like digital marketing, sales, and advertising. So all we ever talk about in that arena, and this is kind of one of my beefs with that arena today, is that all we ever talk about is customer acquisition. lead generation, sales, like monetizing people, basically. Almost never do we talk about actually fulfilling on all the promises we make in order to make that sale. Okay. Yeah. So coming from that arena, now prior to this, I had done like little coaching programs. I had launched a couple of courses of my own, these sorts of things, and I'd always fulfilled, but I never fulfilled at scale like I was about to in this in this run of it, right? Yeah. So my head was always like in the marketing and advertising space, and for me, customer acquisition is just a game. Like, and I love playing that game. And so when we started scaling and doing 7 figures a month relatively quickly, I did not have the whole fulfillment team. Was this guy you're looking at him? That was that was the entire fulfillment staff.
Oh shit.
So wow. I was doing all the coaching, doing all the content in the courses, setting up all the the members area myself, that sort of thing. Obviously that wasn't necessarily super sustainable. And I had one girl who was our support desk, and she was handling all of our support tickets. We scaled up so fast that our sales team was booked out 3 to 4 weeks in advance. So their calendars were full out to about a month, and they're taking 8 to 10 calls a day. And my support desk, which was again one person at the time, our average, so I didn't even know how to measure this. I figured this out along the way, but eventually when I figured this out, I go and ask, and I'm like, so what's our average ticket resolution time? It was 9 days. Wow. I mean, so you sent in a support ticket, and 9 days later we solved your problem. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was not the best customer experience.
Right.
And for me, that was a completely new problem to try to solve. Like, how do I even figure this out? It never been a question that I'd asked myself. The first question was like, can we get to $1 million a month? And then it turns out that you can, but in order to keep doing it, you got to actually fulfill on all the promises you make. So thankfully we were able to find a decent operator at the time who came in, immediately started focusing on our support issues. We were able to scale up the support team, not necessarily in the most intelligent way back then. But that's some of the issues that come along with scaling, is that, there's a lot of, when you scale that fast, it's hard to make very sound decisions, especially if that's your first time scaling that quickly. So we brought on a support team. We were able to turn that around. Eventually I brought on other trainers so that the content wasn't all just my own. And come about so that's 2017, 2018, me and my partner kind of basically decided to go our own separate ways for lots of reasons. I eventually buy him out after kind of a long legal battle. I buy him out at the end of 2018. And one of the first things that I did is I talked to my team so I was getting rid of the old regime, bringing in a new regime. And one of the first things I did is talk to my team and say, like, hey, listen, we just went really fast. I mean, we're doing 20 million a year. We did 20 million our first year, a little over 20 million year 2, where I buy out my partner. And I realized that was not sustainable. So I ended up talking to my team, and I'm like, listen, we went really fast, but I want to go far, not necessarily fast. And so we're going to scale this thing back a bit, and we're going to really focus on building a better infrastructure and customer support and customer satisfaction and customer results. We're going to focus on those things that help a business stand the test of time. And so 2019, we started to really scale back. I scaled back to about half of what we were currently doing. The team went down to about a third of the size that it was previously, and we were doing about half the revenue.
It's such a catch-22 though. So I'm just thinking about this, like, what could you have done differently? I mean, obviously you have the benefit of hindsight, but I'm thinking through that. Look, I'm a guy, I think I told you before we started recording, like I was an insurance exec for years and years. I mean, before this, you were a barista, I think, right? Like we had very different lives before getting into the space, and you're way further ahead by miles than where I am. I'm starting in this space a little bit, but I have an info product, a course, an ascension model into a mastermind, and we're just, it's sort of been playing with it, and now we're starting to get a little more serious, kind of what you were talking about. But what my inclination is to say, okay, here's what I think I need. like, I believe in what we can do, but here's what I think I need. And I want to go out and hire all this stuff, right? I want to go out and pay for that now and build the structure and all of that to go to the next level. But if it doesn't work, it's a lot of people that I brought on that, it ain't working. So how do you, the obvious answer feels like have the infrastructure in place. But I think I've also heard you say, at some point you just started hiring people to fill holes. So if you were to start again, or give me advice for that matter, what do you do? Do you have the belief in the plan to get to $1 million a month and staff for it or structure it? Or is there, I don't know. What do you do? How do you not make the mistake that you made?
These are great questions. Oh my God, Jamie. Okay. So, I love talking about this stuff.
I know you do. I can tell.
My first time around, I didn't have any investor capital. We're bootstrapping this thing.
Yeah.
Okay? And without that capital to start with, so you're going to notice that there's really like two types of businesses that are on the come up. There's businesses with no capital, and businesses with no capital have to be more marketing and sales focused, right? Because they need to drive revenue in order to keep the business alive. Now, if you're a business that has capital to start, then you're typically going to start by being more product focused. Okay. So a lot of SaaS companies are this way. They go out, they raise a ton of capital, and they're really, really focused on the user experience of their platform. They've got to create a phenomenal product if they want to be able to compete in the marketplace. Okay. And they let the product and the user experience is their main selling point. Whereas if you're bootstrapping this thing, you got to drive revenue in fairly quickly in order to stay alive. So you're going to have these conflicting, interests. Okay. Because I was bootstrapping, I built my primary business today. I built it from the ground up. So what that means is I hired the troops before I hired the generals. Right. So when I started to scale up our advertising, I knew I was going to need salespeople. I hired all the salespeople. I trained all the salespeople. I wrote the scripts for all the salespeople. I walked them through all the mock calls. I explained what all of our products were. And then I was the manager of the salespeople, basically.
Yeah.
When I hired support, I hired, I did all the interviews. I hired the support person. I picked what like the support ticket platform was going to be and all these things. And then I, quote unquote, and this is using the term loosely, managed the support person, right? And so you start building, from the ground up, from the bottom up. And then eventually, there was too many salespeople. So eventually I had to hire a sales manager. Eventually I couldn't keep my eyes on all the accounting. So I hired a quote, and this is using this term very loosely as well. I hired a CFO that my partner really liked at the time. And then, once support was way out of our control, then eventually I had a support manager. Then eventually I had an operations person who helped build out the whole support channel. And so that's kind of like the bottom up approach, right? Which again comes along with bootstrapping. Yeah. Today, my businesses that I like start or that I consult with, like where I take a position on the board or something like that, and I work with them, we focus on more of a top-down approach. Today, I have money that I can deploy into a business. And so we take a more top-down approach, meaning the first thing that I'm going to look for typically is an operator who can help the vision come to life and has experience, building something similar to what I'm building. And then I go look for that operator and I put them in that seat first. Now that person, their job then is basically marketing, sales, and fulfillment. They're in all three channels. And they've got to go build the team now that's going to eventually take over marketing, the team that's going to take over sales, the team that's going to take over fulfillment. And I'm working through them to build out the team. Now, if they come with experience, they already know the hiring process. They probably already know people that they've worked with in the past that they can bring on board, or they can recruit from some other company that they can incentivize to come over. They have some of the systems and processes down, the project management software down. Like they come equipped to do the job, right? And then that's a much steadier way to grow, is from that top-down approach. It's like hiring the person that's already done the thing that you're trying to get done and let them bring all of the processes, the team, and all that sorts of stuff. And that keeps me mostly out of the day-to-day.
What if they,
So
oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead, man. Go
I was
ahead.
going to say, what if they don't come with experience? What if you can't afford the experience?
Then you're the experience, right?
Hmm.
Then you're the person. So, and this also comes with the evolution of like entrepreneurship. I think I see this a lot of people that will ask me for like help or consulting. I'll go look at their business, and one of the first mistakes that they're making is one of the first mistakes I made, where they hire for promise of future potential. So they have a need that exists in their business, and they go, oh, I know somebody that I think would be great for this job, my cousin Joe, right? And they're like, I'm going to give him a job, put him in this position. He's got a great personality. I know I can trust him, right? Yeah. And they put somebody in a position that they've never done before, and they kind of hope that the person's going to do a good job. If a business is growing fairly quickly, there's a lot of delegation by abdication, meaning that like, here's this thing that I don't want to have to deal with anymore. So I'm going to hire somebody to go do it. And then I'm just going to get it off my plate, but we don't actually spend enough time training them up on how to do the thing. 3 months later, we find out that they suck at doing the thing. And now we've got to take it back anyway and get rid of that person. That's delegation by abdication. They just abdicate to somebody. So, today, I'm a bit more mature, maybe not in my day-to-day life, but in business, I'm a bit more mature. And one of our themes on my team, and I talk about this a lot, especially like we're hiring all the time. One of the things I talk about is proof of past performance. Proof of past performance versus promise of future potential. So it's not that we're completely closed off to hiring somebody with potential, but typically if we're going to put somebody in a position based on potential, they're going to be it's going to be from within. We're promoting from within, and we're very, very cautious about this because a lot of businesses, they promote from within. And so if you take somebody and you move them one notch up on the ladder and they're playing a role that they've never played before, what happens is everybody that was once under them is technically now by default, they're one notch up the ladder as well. They're trying to fill that gap. And what happens is you create this crack in your infrastructure, right? It's these cracks in the business. So we're very, very cautious about promoting from within and making sure that we backfill the position before we make the promotion. Primarily, though, in a growth phase or scale phase of the business, when we're really scaling up, we're looking for proof of past performance. So I'm not going to bring you on the team unless you can show me that you have actually done the thing that I'm hiring you to do before. And our hiring processes are long.
How do they do that? Yeah, sorry. Walk through that. How do you get proof? Is it just references? What does that look like?
Yeah, resumes, references, a pretty long, arduous hiring process. So depending on who we're hiring, so like if I'm hiring a salesperson today, in our team, our sales hiring process is, I want to say 7 steps long. So there's at least 5 interviews along the way and 7 steps in the process. And along that process, we also have assignments. So we'll do like a culture assignment where we basically, for the sales team, we assign them a book, and we ask them to do not like a book report, but to write us a one page or less essay on what their takeaways were from the book and how are they going to implement what they learned. And I could go into details about this. We don't actually give them the full title of the book. Sure. There's some games that are being played, right? To make sure that they can think on their feet, that they're a problem solver, that they have their own, that they have their own, that they're self-motivated, these sorts of things. Yeah. When we're hiring for more of a director level or manager level or C-suite level type of person, then the process might not necessarily be like 7 or 8 steps, but we're going out and we're finding like a recruiting firm who is going to help us recruit these people. They're going to do all of the kind of first phase interviews to weed out all of the people that aren't a good fit. We'll write a very clear roles and responsibilities document in advance. We also come up with we call it a mission and RR document. So mission and roles and responsibilities. So there'll be a mission of what this role is to accomplish in its first 12 months. So as an example, add $1 million of revenue to the bottom line of the business through, social media channels. through, expanding our reach on social media. That might be, I'm just thinking of something off the top of my head. Then there's going to be key objectives that go along with that. Those key objectives would be like, to get us up and running on, TikTok or something, to improve our Instagram following by, 300,000 followers or whatever it might be. Okay, so there's all these key objectives that go under that. That's what they need to accomplish inside of that first year in order for their role to be considered a success. We'll take that to a recruiting firm and say, this is what we're looking for. And specifically what we want is somebody who's already done all of this, or at least 80% of this. And then they're going to go out and they're going to, like the recruiting firms that we would prefer today are somebody that's going to go out and they're going to actually headhunt people that exist in some other company that are already doing the thing inside of another business. Typically, your best person to hire is not a free agent, right? Like if you're looking at, if I'm building a Super Bowl team, all the free agents available are basically not good enough to have already been on a team. So how are they going to win me a Super Bowl? Yeah. Right. All the best players are currently under contract somewhere. And I've got to go negotiate, a way to bring them over to my team. Okay. So typically your best people are already playing the role in one of your competitors' businesses. You got to go find that person, incentivize them, and bring them over and recruit. So when we're looking for like a C-level or director level, sometimes the manager level, we're looking for somebody that's already playing the role in another business. And typically we can tell from that business's, numbers and what they've accomplished, we can tell that they're doing a good job in their role. And then of course we still take them through a hiring process. We still ask lots of questions. We still, review their resumes. We still call out to references and these sorts of things. We still have, personality tests that we do. We do an SDI. We still have, we also do assessments in these roles. Like right now I'm hiring a sales manager and I have a sales manager assessment where I break down basically our entire sales process in a video. And I tell them, listen, I want to know what numbers would you want to, if you were running the team, what numbers would you want to look at to measure both the effectiveness of the process and the effectiveness of the people that are running the process? Because good data, if you're looking at good data, you have data that tells you whether or not the process is working and then whether or not the people inside the process are working. And you got to really have both. Okay. And so one of the assessments is give me all the KPIs that you would want to look at in order to measure this. And I want to see, like, can they look at a sales process and instantly start to turn that into, numbers that can be measured so that they can figure out how effective it is being. And if they've got good management experience, they know how to do that. If they don't have good management experience, like they can be a great people leader, but if they can't make decisions based on data, then I really don't give a shit about their feelings and their gut, right? I want somebody that can one, be good with people, but can also interpret the happenings in the business into numbers that are measurable so that we can make educated decisions.
Man, how involved are you specifically in all of this? Like, are you designing these processes, like at the hiring level? I mean, like, are you designing, are you involved, or does it depend on the level of the job? Like, how involved are you as like a visionary, the CEO, the person at the top of the chain here?
Today, I'm hardly involved. I mean, we were just talking before we got on this podcast that I was just in Hawaii for 3 weeks, dealing with kind of like a family emergency. While in Hawaii, I probably got on a handful of meetings in 3 weeks. So today I'm not very involved in my primary business at all, other than being the face of it.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
But on the come up, I had to really learn how to be, a good operator too, before I had good operators. And really, in order for me to figure out what a good operator looked like, I had to be one first. Right. And now I have one that's like better than me at this stuff. But early on, yeah, man, I'm looking at one of the biggest mistakes, a big mistake that I see a lot of businesses make as well, going back to what your original question was, is that like whenever there's a problem in the business, they think that it's a people problem. They think that they have to hire somebody to fix the problem. But more often than not, I find that it's a process problem. So there is, and because I come from the world of marketing where we try to automate as many things as we can possibly automate, I look at like, okay, wait, what's the process? Because I can probably automate a lot of this. And so really it was diving in and looking early on as an operator, looking at what is causing this issue. I don't want to put a band-aid on this. I don't want to figure out how to solve the symptom. I want to figure out how to solve the problem. So how do we be more proactive about this? And usually there's some sort of a breakage in a process somewhere that can proactively solve the problem. But a lot of early stage entrepreneurs I see are like, they're fixing symptoms, not problems. If that makes sense.
That makes complete sense. I'm curious how all of this relates, and maybe you don't see a distinction at all, but I feel like in the last few years, the business building a business has morphed into building a personal brand in so many ways, right? Like the brand becomes the business. I feel. Are these principles, because I feel like in the last few years, I mean, you've become a big brand. I look at the Brad Lees of the world right there in Vegas, right? We've had him on the podcast. Another guy who just, decided, you know what, it makes sense for me to build my brand, which essentially is building a business. Are there any differences when the brand is the business? Is there anything that you do differently when the brand is the business, or is it the same process?
I don't know. Can you clarify the question for me a little bit? Like when you say the brand is the business, you mean like the person?
Like from what I gather, maybe I'm wrong. It wasn't like Keala at the very beginning, right? And now it's very much, I feel like it's, like you are out in front more so because social media has become such a big force, right? TikTok and everything else is, is blowing up. So I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, I feel like and maybe tell me I'm wrong, like, nah, you're completely screwed in the head here. That's fine. But I feel like, you and a lot of people have had to, or have chosen to maybe say, okay, yeah, I've got the business that I built, but now in order for this business, and I'm going to use Brad Lee. Do you know Brad or no? Do you know of him?
Yeah, I know Brad.
So Lightspeed, right? I think of Lightspeed. Like I asked him on the podcast, like, dude, what do you do? Like no one knows. All of a sudden you're this big brand, but I don't know what the business is that you had, right? But he built Lightspeed to a sizable company. Oh yeah. And then all of a sudden, what's that?
I said, oh yeah, he built it to a sizable company. Yeah.
And then he becomes this brand, this entrepreneur brand, which obviously helps promote Lightspeed. It helps grow the business, this other business, this core business that he started. I don't know. Maybe I'm observing it wrong. This is the first time we've ever talked, but I feel like it's similar for you. Like you built the business and now I see you, not, the business was the business and now I see you out in front. So I guess that's what I'm wondering. Like, as you started to pivot, or maybe it's just been an organic thing, building the brand, the face, like, Keala as this guy, and what is he? He's motivational, he's inspiring. I think I'd use some words, right? Like coach, growth facilitator, blogger, like these bigger terms of who you are. As you're building that, what's the difference, if any, between you building your brand, you being out in front as this guy that just people attract into, and then, oh yeah, by the way, here's how I can help you. Here's the monetization of that, between building the business that you're monetizing and building you? Is there a difference?
Yeah, man, I think there's a pretty considerable difference maybe. And this is just speaking from like my experience and kind of like watching some of the people, like the figureheads in the space. Early on in my business, I really was not at all focused on my personal brand. I mean, here's an example. Ty Lopez?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Kind of everybody knows Ty Lopez, right? Here in my garage, right? Here in my knowledge, right? That whole video that took off on YouTube, right? Yeah. And it took off on Facebook too. I'm fairly certain that I have more views of my YouTube ads than he does, but less people know who I am. Ty had operators in his business, and he really was not plugged into his business at all. So he just focused on building his brand. And when that video blew up, he capitalized on it in so many ways. Like he turned that into so many different podcast interviews and all these different things that he did that kind of like made him more well-known, right? Like more established. Whereas I've had more views on my ads. I have an ad with over 100 million views and another ad with over 80 million views that built our original success. So that's 180 million views there. And that's not necessarily 180 million unique people, but that's 180 million views. And I, at the time, did not have any time to do any personal branding, take on any speaking engagements, go and do any podcast, because I was operating the business. Right. And so, and I was focused on that. Now, today, because the business runs fairly smoothly on a day-to-day basis without me, we've got and by the way, I've just I got to give a shout out to my team because I just have the most epic fucking team ever.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like 20 something of us, and for us to be doing the kind of numbers that we're doing at 20 something people, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But now that I've got a great team, now I can go focus on my personal brand a bit. And that's why you're starting to see me show up more on Instagram. I'm doing more YouTube videos, and I'm being more proactive about this. And I think this is my experience. Like you you've probably seen Hormozy,
Sure.
Alex and
Blowing
Layla.
up, man. Huge. Yeah.
Yeah, they've been blowing up on social media for like basically the last 18 months, right? Alex came out with a book. The book smashed, great book, $100 million offers or whatever it's called. Yeah, it's great book. I mean, I read it. It was one of the few books. I'll put it this way. I'm just gonna give a plug for Alex, right? One of the very, very few books that I bought, and I'm listening to it on audio, and I'm actually slowing it down to 1x speed.
Oh, I know what you mean. I know what you mean by that. Yeah.
I'm like, wait. He just said some good shit right there. I got to slow this down and hear it again.
Exactly what you mean. Oh, well, go back. Yeah.
Whereas like most of my audiobooks I'm listening to on like 2.5x speed. But anyway, great content. That great content blew up their social brand, and now they're getting tons of traction on social. They're speaking on all these stages and all these things. But at the end of the day, what made that possible? They did something that was noteworthy to begin with.
Right.
That's what they did. Right. And that's the secret. Well, like, why is Brad Lee so popular? Well, he did something that was noteworthy to begin with, right? Why am I focused on my personal brand today? Well, I've already done something that's noteworthy, and now I'm sharing how I did it, right? So there's a lot of people like in the coaching, consulting, expert space, even some in the SaaS space that like want to be the face of their business, and are like focused on their social, and YouTube and all these different things for like client attraction. You know what's attractive to a client? Go get some fucking results. That's what's attractive to a client. You know what I mean? And so I think that in the early stages, it's about doing something that's noteworthy. And then once you have something that's noteworthy and is running and is, driving basically on its own, then you can go talk about this noteworthy thing that you did, and all of the attraction kind of just comes along with it as a byproduct, if that makes sense.
It makes complete sense, man. No, that's incredible. Actually, that's a great outline for exactly what personal brand is. Man, I appreciate that. We're coming up on time. I did want to ask you this just there's a lot of different places I could have gone. I wrote a bunch of notes, but in the interest of time, just for those out there that are looking at paid promotion, paid advertising today, YouTube, Facebook, like, I don't know, are you focused in any specific area? Do you see more opportunity in any specific area?
Wow, that's a good question. So we actually blew up on YouTube originally, and probably at one point, 100% of our ad spend was on YouTube, spending about 30 to 40K a day at one point. Wow. Today, Google has changed so many different things about their ad platform, that honestly, a lot of their changes seem a bit like a money grab. Mm-hmm. Right now, the vast majority of our ad spend is on Facebook. So I'm not necessarily married to like any platform. I'm just like, where are my customers at? Where's my ideal customer at? And where am I going to get the best ROAS? And typically your best ROAS, by the way, is going to come based on the platform that you're advertising on, is like a funnel that's congruent with the platform. Meaning that there's a type of behavior that somebody exhibits when they're on Facebook versus the type of behavior that they're going to exhibit when they're on YouTube versus the type of behavior that they're going to exhibit on TikTok. And so building a sales funnel that takes into account what is this user, what is the user behavior on the platform, and then creating a funnel that is congruent with that. So let me give you an example of what I mean by that.
Yeah.
Right. So our primary customer acquisition vehicle is an automated webinar. Now, everybody used to say, some pretty popular names used to say even that, like, you got to have a just-in-time option, meaning like they hit the page and they can watch the webinar right now. Okay. And everybody's like, the just-in-time is crushing it. Just-in-time didn't crush it for us at all on Facebook. Right. And then just-in-time didn't even crush it for us on YouTube either. But what did crush it is watch yesterday's replay right now. Didn't work on Facebook, worked on YouTube. Why would it work on YouTube? Well, if somebody's on a platform where they're watching videos and then they click to a page and they can like, oh, let me watch this other video right now. they're more likely to actually sit there and watch an entire, my pitch was 2 hours, right? So they're more likely to sit there and watch the presentation and choose to watch a video right now versus the person on Facebook who's standing in line at DMV, just checking out what their friends are up to. They're not going to go watch. And if they can choose to watch the video right now, they don't even have the attention span to give to it. Right. So by testing these things, we figured out, hey, this works really well on this platform, does not work at all on this platform. And that's what I mean about like creating something that's specific to the platform that the traffic is coming off of. Secondly, the second answer to your question was, like what opportunities do I see right now? We're really working on getting dialed in on TikTok. I'm very, very rarely a early adopter of things. People might fault me for that. Don't really care. Early adopters tend to take all the arrows, get slaughtered. They leave the battlefield bloody. So I'm more a fan of like, let everybody else go test that thing out, figure it out. And then once it's proven and it's working and it's going to stand the test of time, then I'll go jump in on it and crush it. TikTok though, right now, basically the lowest CPA that we're seeing of anything else that exists. So the lowest customer acquisition cost of any other platform currently. Now, very different user behavior. I mean, they're sitting there watching, people do dance videos and weird shit. I mean, it's less of that today than it was 3 years ago, but it's still quite a bit of that.
A lot of twerking. Yeah.
Exactly. Like what kind of ad do you produce on TikTok in order to generate a click? And then what sort of a funnel do you produce in order to get that click to actually convert into something that's worthwhile? These sorts of things. But as far as like the biggest opportunity, I think the most undercapitalized on opportunity in the online advertising space right now is TikTok.
I'm curious on the funnel side, just real quick, and then we'll wrap here. But what is the so it makes sense what you said, long form webinar, long form platform, YouTube. But if you're on TikTok, it's 30 seconds, 4 seconds, really, for that matter, that people have attention span. So what is the, I mean, you're testing it, but just what are some ideas? So is it not long form webinar? Is it more like a mini webinar or a 5-minute video, or what are some things that are effective, do you think, or that you're testing on, if you don't mind sharing, on the TikTok side?
Yeah. So if you look at all my ads that have crushed it for us, right? All of my ads are content driven ads. And this came from when I was, when we first launched on YouTube. One of the things that I looked at is like, okay, well, how do I stand out on this platform? Everybody's doing the ads of like, hey, what's up? Are you struggling with, Well, I'm so-and-so, and here's what I've accomplished, and click here, go over to the next page and register for my webinar or get my free book or whatever. And I was like, well, what if I just made my ads valuable? Like, what if right inside my advertisement, I gave content that was like useful to the person that is my ideal customer, right? Most of your listeners, they wouldn't be impressed by my ads, but my ideal customer is, right? So, and everybody at the time told me, no, you got to keep your videos down to like 1 to 2 minutes. Like, says who? Says what? Like, what is that based on? Well, based on what we're seeing. Okay, well, I'm gonna go test this. So my video, like my 100 million views video, the first one that we got, 100 million views on, that was a 10-minute video. Wow. It's an ad, right? But there's content in it. And so, and that's just, that strategy has crushed it for us on both YouTube and Facebook. And I love creating an ad where somebody can get value from the ad, even if they don't go and click and opt in or whatever. Like it's going to create a better, emotional experience around. There's a better affinity for my brand if you get content just from the ad by itself. Not possible on TikTok. Yeah. It's like, I mean, it's not necessarily impossible, but I'm not doing a 10-minute video on TikTok. You know what I mean? Like maybe 1 minute. Okay. That I can get away with. So now how do we condense down that content so much so that we can try to give some sort of an epiphany or an aha moment in 30 seconds to a minute and still get a qualified click? Because a good ad is not just focused on getting clicks. It's focused on like, getting a qualified click. So you've got to repel the people that are not going to be a good fit, attract the people that are going to be a good fit, and create some sort of a piece of content that's going to do that for you so that you're getting quality clicks out of the gate rather than just as many clicks as I can get, right? Figuring out how to do that on TikTok right now, very difficult, at least so far. And we've only been at this, we've been talking about this for like a couple of months, maybe. So, and then putting the content on the first page of the funnel, the content that would originally go in the ad. Now the content is on the first page of the funnel. And from there, then we're asking them to click over and, take the next step. Whereas on all of our previous platforms where the content was in the ad, they click to a page and the page line them up with the next step of the funnel to opt in or whatever. So now we're having to kind of like make this multi-step thing that we didn't do before.
Interesting. Very interesting. And in the interest of time, I'll leave it there, man. Wow. This is, wow. Okay. Where can people reach out? Where can people learn more? Where can people find you, I should say, at this point, where you want to direct folks?
Oh yeah. I mean, best place to find me right now, like the places I'm going to be most active is either on YouTube or Instagram. Like I don't even have a personal website right now. It's under construction. So if people want to find me and like get more valuable content, the places that I talk about scaling a business most, and marketing and advertising most is Instagram or YouTube. So on Instagram, it's Keala Kanae. It's only 10 letters, but it's got 40 vowels in it. So it can be very confusing for most people. Right? So it's KEALAKANAE. And then same on, on YouTube, just search Keala Kanae, you'll find the channel. But that's the best place to like stay connected with me and kind of get content. I don't really pitch much stuff on there at all. These platforms really exist for me to grow like the personal brand, the brand that you were talking about. So it's not it's not a pitch fest. It's really like content and value driven.
Ton of value, man. Like I said, I told you at the jump, I found you on Clubhouse eons ago when that was a thing. And it was just chock full. I remember that whole discussion, you were leading it. It was just chock full of info. And then I went into your funnel without you knowing it. I essentially going into your YouTube channel, follow you on IG, and your stuff is really, really informative. Even you were doing a challenge, like a weekend challenge. And I was honestly more looking at like, how is he doing it? But it's like 2 days or 3 days, like 8 hours, a bunch of, and you're going to come out of it with, actionable. I mean, it was no joke, like everything that you do is value focused, which was why it was honestly such a blessing that you agreed to come on this podcast. I've been a fan for a while, so I really appreciate you being here and just, man, opening up so much. So thanks for that.
Hey man, those are some of the most flattering compliments I've ever gotten, bro. I appreciate that.
There you go. There you go. I'll leave my mark with that. That's a great way to end it. So Keala, man, I appreciate you being on.
Thanks for having me, Jamie.